Hello everyone, and welcome to Twitch Tuesdays at the TRU Library. The date is Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, and it's just by my lonesome here today, and because of that I thought that we might just do something I'm also familiar with here, playing Magic the Gathering Arena. Let's see, there's only a few folks in the chat right now, but welcome. Let's folks filter in a little bit. So yeah. So I thought today we could just kind of talk a little bit about how do you play Magic the Gathering, why is it perhaps an interesting game, and then talk a little bit about the kind of the history, the lore, at least of the early Magic the Gathering, because I started quite early. I started playing in 1994 when I was only like 9 or 10 or so. What even is time? But yeah, I've kind of been able to like see it develop over the past 20 some odd, almost 30 years into what it is today. And why, as much as I love playing it, the ways that games have been monetized, I'm still deeply suspicious about with these kinds of like mastery trees and special memberships and different kinds of currencies and stores where you can spend real money for various things and all of this sort of stuff. I love playing Magic, but this is on thin ice with me. So yeah, let's see. So to start off, I thought I'd just play some matches against the AI to give you a bit of a sense what Magic the Gathering is as a card game. Let's see, I see someone in the chat. I don't know if folks have a preference over what color deck we play. I like being a little bit. Hey, Video Jordan, welcome. Video Jordan, do you play Magic the Gathering? I don't think you do, but I could be wrong. I'm probably going to just start playing around with the Spirit aggro, because Ghosties are... I never played it, but I did play Pokemon and think it's a similar mechanics. I mean, I'd say they're quite different mechanics, but also, yes, they are collectible card games. Pokemon came out somewhat after Magic the Gathering. Actually, there was a huge boom in different collectible card games after Magic the Gathering first started entering popular kind of consciousness. It's also around the same time that we get Yu-Gi-Oh! As a card game, and a whole bunch of others that kind of died off after a few years and aren't as perhaps well known. Seven Seas, which is exclusively a pirate and naval kind of themed card game. There was a mech game whose name I forget. Legend of the Five Rings, which is more feudal Japan, and what have you. Let's go in against a bot. I'll play my Ghost deck. So in this, it is a card game, for those who don't know. There's a whole bunch of different formats to play. This is a 60-card format. And I'm pretty sure it won't time me out here. Normally when you're playing against a live human, you only have so much time to make your turns. But this is an artificial intelligent opponent, so hopefully it won't be prompting me like that. So at the start of the game, each player draws 7 cards. Right? And you can see my 7 cards here. And you can choose whether or not you want to keep those cards or whether or not you want to mulligan, which is shuffle that 7 cards in and then draw 6 cards. Your opening hand can be very important. One thing about the game too, right, is that you get to design your own deck, which we'll talk a bit more about later. This is a ghost themed deck, and you'll notice that there are different kinds of cards, right? So one of the interesting things about Magic is that basically you're playing the role of this powerful Planeswalker. And what a Planeswalker has changed throughout the history of the lore of Magic the Gathering, sometimes just described as a powerful magical spellcaster. And in the early days, though, was more like a transcendent being that was kind of uncanny and creepy and inhuman in the ways that they went beyond the human. But basically, the way you cast spells is by drawing upon the power of certain biomes, certain elements of the earth, which is always kind of interesting to me, right, in terms of that like human-nature relationship. And there's 5 basic colors of Magic that represent different kind of principles and or biomes, and they change how you play the game, what kind of play style you have, how you can combine things. So notice in this opening hand, I have 2 lands and 5 other spells, and they're all relatively low cost because that's how this deck works. And when I say low cost, I should specify it's because they have a low mana cost. Right up here in the top right corner, you can see like one little squiggly sun. That's 1 white mana. And so I'm going to kind of do my opening hand, and I'm just going to kind of play through a little bit for those of you who haven't played Magic before, to give you a bit of a sense of how the pacing of the game works. So we start. I'm going to keep these 7. And also, if I'm going too fast for folks, please do let me know. And also, as always, if you have any research or reference questions, also please let me know. Oops.
I'm ready to play.
Oh, it talks. I so rarely actually play this game with the sound on. Oh my goodness. Alrighty, so I am going to put down land. So a few things just happened there, right? So my opponent here, this AI, is playing a red deck. Red's main mana source is mountains. So what they did was that the first turn you can play 1 land a turn. They put down a mountain, and they played this Raging Goblin. Now, usually when you play a creature, which the creatures are the things that do the fighting and defending for you, you put...
Oh, sorry.
Oh my,
I just saw something.
Interesting. Usually when you play a creature, it can't attack or use its abilities the first turn it comes out because it has what's known as summoning sickness. It's very disorienting, whatever process makes these beings, which actually has also changed in the story over time. So usually they can't do things when they first come out. But this Raging Goblin has an ability called Haste, which means he doesn't care about that. Okay, I'm going to mute you, little all. So I'm just going to play a land. Boom, comes into play tapped. It can give me a white or a blue mana. Wow. In-Street Cadet. One of the things about the cards is that usually you can sort out what they do by reading them. Right? A lot of the abilities there, but that involves also knowing, what those words mean. What does it mean when it becomes blocked? What is a creature token? These sorts of things. One of the advantages of starting off with Magic Arena is a whole bunch of the decision-making of this. Well, advantages or disadvantages is a whole bunch of the decision-making is already automated for you, right? There's a whole, in terms of the flow of play, there's a whole bunch of different steps when you start your turn, right? You start with an upkeep and a draw step, and you draw a new card at the beginning of each of your turns. Then you have a main phase, or first pre-combat main phase, which is when you can cast most of your spells, right? And most of your lands. So, okay, I have a pre-combat main phase. I'm going to put down an extra land. Here's an island. So now I have a whole bunch of things I can do, right? Because I have access to either a white or blue mana and a blue mana. So I can pretty well play anything in my hand here, because you can see it has 1 white and 1 generic or 1 colorless mana, which can be played with any kind of land. So in order to use the land to cast a spell, you tap it sideways. So turn it sideways, which is called tapping. So what I'm going to do here, because I have things to do, I'm going to play at this Clarion Spirit. And that goes in there during my main phase, taps those 2 lands, puts a creature on the board for me, which is a 2/2 creature, which immediately gets killed. Okay, well, thank you for that, AI. So they cast an instant spell, which is one of the few spells you can play at an opponent's turn. Alright, let's land this way. Which actually did 2 damage to my creature, which you'll notice had 2 here, the 2 numbers at the base of it. I don't know if you can see that. So the first 2 is its offense, and the second 2 is its defense. So if it's ever dealt 2 damage, it will die and go to this place, which is called, aptly, the graveyard. So let's see, what do we want to do about all this then? Say, suddenly becoming particularly British. I'm going to put down another Clarion Spirit. If they have another shock, I will be cross. Okay. And Clarion Spirit has ability, whenever I cast my second spell each turn, I get a 1/1 white spirit creature token. What that means is, when I play this, to trap their goblin, I will also get a spirit friend, 1/1. Ghost friend, there we go. I'm putting their goblin into the portable hole, which exiles it, tucks it away. Oh, now they kill it. Okay, they have a lot of red decks. Red decks are often associated with aggression, very fast. A lot of things going on here. Alrighty, what do we want to do? Alright, let's do some of it. I'm playing an enchantment. Now, an enchantment isn't a creature, but it still goes on the board, just like that artifact did, where players can interact with it with spells and abilities, but it's not going to be doing any blocking. It does what it says on it. At the end of the battlefield, I choose a creature type. This is a spirit theme deck. Creature of that type, I'll get +1/+1. So +1 offense, and +1 defense. Boof. So now my spirits are beefier. Beefier in an intangible sense. I'm going to attack because I'm tired of getting hit in the face and not doing anything about it with my 2/2, which also has an ability called Flying, which means that if his creature, even if his creature wasn't tapped, it could go over its head. That's one thing. When you attack with a creature, it can't be used to defend you because its energy and attention has been spent. So here, poof. Oh, you're playing a lot of stuff. Oh, that's a classic. Not seen that art before. A dupe. And another land again. You can play 1 land a turn if you have it. Play this. Got another Rally the Ranks. More spirits. Getting bigger. There we go. I'm going to be a little bit more defensive here since this AI has tricks up its little artificial sleeves. Attack. Oh yeah, you start off with 20 life. And again, the main way to win is get your opponent to 0 life. But there are other alternative win conditions. For instance, you notice you generally start off with 60 cards in your deck. But when your opponent can no longer draw a card, and they have to draw a card, they lose the game. So there's multiple ways to win. Oop. Oop. That exiles that. Whenever something exiles, that gets bigger. And I pretty well, because red decks oftentimes are very aggressive, this player no longer has any cards in their hand, so there's not a lot they can do. I'm in my board state, just the collective effects of everything on the playing field here is looking pretty good right now. Because even though they started off strong, dealing me a lot of damage, they now don't really have anything to follow up with. You know what, I'll just let it die. Oof, oof. That's one thing, they could choose to block my 1 creature with their 2 creatures. I don't know if this is all helping. I don't have like a fully... There we go, and I just beat them because I dealt them 20 damage. Did any of that make sense, Video Jordan? Yeah, red is a very aggressive color generally, particularly mono red. For this blue-white deck I have is a pretty fast deck as well, but like red is more characterized by it. So yeah, I don't know. I can go into more details about how to play. Magic is, like, it can be relatively simple to play it at a basic level, but there's so many different steps that are kind of like the logic of a computer, different times when you can respond to what your opponent is doing or when they can respond to what you're doing, so that mastering it is quite involved. So I'm going to play one more game against the AI and just talk a little bit about kind of like the logic and the lore of Magic the Gathering. First, I'll switch up decks just for some variety. Let's see. Let's try this. This is a green-white enchantment themed deck. Again, that different card type called an enchantment, I mentioned before. Now, there are 5 colors of Magic, right? White, blue, black, red, and green. They're the colors you see on the back of the Magic card, located here, right? Now, those colors are associated with kind of different principles, right? Like white is associated with planes, generally with kind of like pro-social or like order in a certain way of society, which can be good or bad, right? In the early days of Magic, white was the good guy color and black was the bad guy color. But like they've since expanded that notion to be like white tends to be more like thinking about society and black is more thinking about an individual, and kind of complicated that narrative a bit. In fact, some of the antagonists are strictly speaking just white only because of that emphasis on order and control, which also white shares with blue, which is another, which is also associated with kind of logic and reason in this quest for perfection, which can be kind of like, which can be good or bad depending upon the context. Black is the swamps, represented by swamps. It's often like the individual. It's often associated with death, decay, demons, and those sorts of things tend to be black, but they're not always the bad guys in the lore. Red, again, the mountains, is very kind of like impulse, reaction, like being very fast, very kind of like associated with mountains, volcanoes, and green is associated with forests. Again, associated with kind of like accepting the natural order, destiny. It's kind of the more elfy, fairy kind of stuff. Yeah. And often these colors have opposing colors to them, but that's kind of, you know, been less of a thing.
Righty-o, now let's play.
Righty-o, you say? Let's mute you again. Righty-no. But yeah, red is very bursty. Oop. Street Goblin. Oh, it growls at you. Delightful. I have two options here. Howdy. One of the things I think is really interesting about why I found like card games in particular to be kind of cool is just the way in which like it's this good metaphor I think for life, particularly in a game where you get to design your own deck, right? Because it's this combination of intention, you know, you intentionally design your deck in a certain way, you intentionally choose to play your hand in a certain way, but also of accident. There is that element of randomness contained within it. I'll take that to the face. No blockers. Hit me. Hit me. There we go. Which I think, I don't know, I think is a good metaphor for life in some instances. Putting down another land. I'll play this. And this creature is pretty powerful. Even though it's relatively small, it keeps on drawing me cards and getting bigger as I put enchantments down. Which is a big deal. Because a thing called card advantage, or how quickly you're drawing cards, is an important deciding factor in whether or not you're going to win the game, because your cards are like how you can do things. Alrighty. Let's start getting beefy, shall we? Oof. Drawing myself more cards. This thing is bigger. This gets out of hand very quickly. Oof. So yeah. So the thing about like the early days of Magic is that it was associated also with all of these stories, right? And the early cycle of novels were quite unusual. In fact, like contemporary, you know, kind of like Magic the Gathering's like fiction tends to be very focused on almost kind of like an Avengers Endgame style magical superhero, you know, stuff. Which, you know, wasn't the case in the old days. Much like in the Star Wars franchise, right? Like, some of the more interesting and weird stuff is now no longer canon, technically. So like I mentioned, I'm going to switch over to see if there's... So I mentioned before, right, like how in the game of Magic you are playing the role of a Planeswalker. Now, I think it's really interesting that in the early days of the books, like the Clayton Emery run from Whispering Woods, Shattered Chains, Final Sacrifice. Oh, yeah, fine. You know what? Fine. I don't mind them. Alright, now this is just overkill. So one of the things that was interesting, right, was in trying to understand what a planeswalker was. They had different accounts of like what the experience of summoning creatures was like. In some of the early short stories, roughly or novels, those between like 1994 and 1996, planeswalkers are actually universally reviled for bringing all of these creatures of the multiverse to fight their proxy wars for them. Like, it was kind of interesting. Like, as a planeswalker, you weren't necessarily a good person. You were this semi-godlike being that had you had the power to turn your own personal grudges into like dimension traversing, you know, proxy wars. And so there's these early stories that talk about like the way in which planeswalkers are both feared, respected, and hated because of that, which is really kind of interesting. And, you know, once kind of like Magic became more corporatized, that kind of fell out of to the wayside because you don't want the players feeling like they're the baddies. So they actually changed the way that they talked about what it meant to summon a creature in Magic the Gathering. It's like, okay, you weren't just like pulling these creatures away from their homes to fight your wars, but it was more like you were pulling an archetypical idea of those beings and making them manifest as things to fight for you. to kind of try to like take that edge off it. But that gets really different, right? When you start talking about in Magic, they also then introduced beings known as legends or legendary creatures, right? And then that becomes like, what does it mean to be like an archetypical creature that's also, you know, this legendary creature, merfolk shaman, right? What does that mean? And I've always found it really interesting the ways that they actually try, when they actually address it, how they try to explain the logic, the game mechanic logic in narrative terms. This was particularly the case, actually, if you read later in the Jeff Grubb run of the Ice Age block of novels, The Gathering Dark, The Eternal Ice, and The Shattered Alliance from 1999 to 2000, where they actually talk about mages summoning these shady archetypes of long-gone heroes to kind of like do their bidding. And these archetypes are semi-sentient. They kind of remember who they're supposed to be, but they're also just kind of like a story made manifest of that being. And I always thought that was kind of interesting way of describing, you know, what are you doing when you're summoning these beings, rather than just going, but it's a kid's game, it doesn't matter. I liked thinking about the implications and the consequences and the social dynamics of what that meant. Because of that also too, right, planeswalkers are often presented in these early narratives as being, again, like not really human, as being kind of like, you know, yeah, demigods in their own rights, that they can like cast these earth-shattering spells and draw forth either literally sentient beings from their homes to fight for them, or these weird archetypes of those beings. Either way, it's kind of funky. I think that's particularly interesting in the cycle of novels that Clayton Emery wrote, where actually in those, there's a benevolent planeswalker who's associated more with like white and green as colors. And she kind of goes out of her way. There's almost like a sense that there's this inertia that if in this world, in Dominaria, which was the original home plane of a lot of where a lot of Magic story happened, in this world, if you're a wizard or a mage who becomes powerful enough, eventually you just become a planeswalker. And part of the tension of that novel series was one of the main characters getting ever more powerful and trying not to become a planeswalker because it removes you from your humanity in these interesting ways. And I always thought that was a really interesting kind of like tension in the series, and the logic of like what you are is when you play Magic. Now, I should stress all of this stuff is pre-2000s pretty well narrative. At a certain point, they change the narrative. They call it like the mending, where, you know, they talk about how, you know, these planeswalkers were too powerful and were capable of doing too many godlike things, and that was harming the fabric of the universe. So kind of post-mending planeswalkers are more like superpowered magical superheroes. They can still do summoning and stuff, but they're mortal, they can die, you know, these sorts of things. Whereas the previous planeswalkers were, again, immortal. They could do so many different things. Ooh, are we still live? There we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, so like that's, I don't know if that's interesting to other folks. I find it really kind of intriguing. And that's where we get kind of like Urza, right, of the Brothers' War. I don't think I actually have any cards with him on, but kind of like this first kind of like main character who was like original in the kind of like the lore of the cards themselves, him and his brother Mishra, and how Urza becomes a planeswalker, and is kind of presented as this mad being who like wants to kind of like, you know, defend Dominaria, but is also incredibly callous and kind of inhuman, and kind of in some ways just as bad as the forces that he's fighting. And I don't know, that kind of ambiguity of what a planeswalker was really interesting to me. Connection got weird, yeah. Let me know if it happens again. Oh, wait, So yeah, I know that's some of the things that I thought was interesting about the old lore, and how that really kind of gets lost when you deal with the post-mending planeswalkers. These questions of what is magic in this world. I'm always really interested in those kind of imaginary metaphysics and how they can like be used to kind of add richness to a landscape. And I don't know about you, but like I find that like I have a hard time playing regular card games because I need the art, I need the story, I need the lore to associate it with the card and game mechanics. All right, and yeah, so here's just some of the random decks I have. I don't know, Video Jordan or whoever else is in the chat, if folks have a deck they want me to play, or that it looks kind of cool based on the name or based on like the colors. No preference? see if there is a preference. Or are we stuck in a... I don't know. What do you want to do, Luke? Well, there is no preference stated in the chat. I guess I will go with spooky, scary skeletons. Sending shivers down your spine. And yeah, so now this is a super elaborate like series of stories because it's like planes hopping and kind of dimension hopping. So you can keep on making new planes for the players to visit. Then like just like, yeah, it has so many new opportunities, right? There's a plane, aerial domination. Oh, okay, I see you there. All right, that's aerial domination. That is right there. Okay, that's one of the pre-constructed decks. So I'm gonna get wrecked, but let's do this. I'm gonna play historic aerial domination. Where'd it go? There it is. It's not always the easiest thing to navigate. So this is now me going up against a human with a pre-generated deck. I'm probably gonna get wrecked here, but let's see what we can do. That's my icon, which is the Gorgon Planeswalker Vraska. I don't know. I really like her. I like her story. Green-black kind of becomes, in the plane of Ravnica, which is this kind of whole plane that is just all one big city, green-black kind of becomes the color of the kind of like, you know, industrial worker, not industrial workers, but like the workers who work the farms, the fields, the sewer system. And they're kind of an oppressed group in a lot of ways, and that intrigues me. I'm gonna keep 5. Don't need you right now. Alrighty. Adoof. I'm gonna get red. Salmon, whenever flying into the battlefield under control, gets +1/+1. There's so many different ways to play too. One of the ways that people like playing is Commander, where you actually choose one legendary creature to be kind of the commander of a deck. It's more of a multiplayer format. But one of the things in kind of like this 1v1 Magic is kind of like playing fantasy chess. But if you're playing Commander as a format or a multiplayer format, it's more like playing dodgeball. Things get pretty over the top. Boop. That. Boof. And again, I don't know if you maybe played Hearthstone or whatnot, but the way that they just animate this, kind of interesting. I've not seen this deck archetype before, so I don't know exactly what they're doing. How about no? Aha, combat tricks. So that they tried to do something to my creature. I made it protection from spells, so that spell fizzled. Which is why I was fair. Alright. Good hanging out video drawer. Oh, they killed it anyway. Yeah, I'm gonna get wrecked with this deck. It's not a very well designed deck. There's my face. Alright, you have a good night. Well, thank you kindly. May the force be with you as well. I'll play a different deck after this. So I don't know if this is an interesting game to watch if you don't actually know how to play Magic. I can enjoy watching Magic games being played, but I also know I'm weird. So again, let me know either in the YouTube comments or in the chat if this is the kind of game you'd be interested in watching more of. One of the things I'm trying to do here is also just, you know, give folks a chance to check out different games, see what y'all like, see what you think doesn't really necessarily translate well into a streaming context. Like I said, I do hope to hopefully next week have a bit more time to do that research on astrology, astronomy, and medicine historically. Oh, you've got a combat trick in your hand if you're attacking me with him. I'm just going to take it to the face. Oh no, you don't have a combat trick. You're just messing with my head. Well done. But yeah, but that's something maybe play while playing Final Fantasy XIV because he's the astrologian character. But this was just, it's been a very busy week of conferences or so. Yeah, this is a lose in battle. But then again, this deck, their deck is not as imposing as. Venice, so it needs to be features. Yeah, no, they've got me. I'm just gonna call it. I'm gonna explode. Kaboom. Let's see how. Doing okay? Alrighty. Yeah, no. Hopefully after this week I'll be able to put a bit more research into some of the things to actually give you a proper lecture. Michelle, I don't think Michelle will be back until the end of the month. Definitely missing Michelle's energy. You're probably missing Michelle's energy too. Standard play. Skeleton. Oh mio mio. Oh yeah, the new set too is interesting. The new set, Streets of New Capenna, is explicitly like Gilded Age 1920s themed fantasy, which is kind of a fun theme. But also, like, I don't know about you, but I think it's really interesting that, like, given everything that's going on in our society right now, we're seeing so many callbacks to the 1920s, to the Gilded Age, to the period before the stock market crashes. You know, I don't know. I think that folks are feeling that, and sometimes ironically, sometimes unironically, like with the Met Gala being Gilded Age themed and all that. That said, I am a big fan of vests, and that's definitely something that was also very Gilded Age. I do like that these just like pretty little backgrounds, and you can click on it. Look at it splashing in the water, like an absolute child. Look at it go. Let's see now. One of the things that black can do is also make players discard cards, which can be very handy for discarding the cards, but also for looking at their hand, seeing what they got. Well, you've got all kinds of options in here. Look at all this stuff. That doesn't really scare me. Doesn't really bother me. No, I want to deny a card draw. Yeah. One of those games where you have a limited range of ways you can talk to your opponent, which sometimes is a saving grace. I don't know. Having grown up in the Magic the Gathering community, I know sometimes, at least historically, it could be very toxic. Skeletons. More skeletons. Oh, that like crunchy sound, the sound effect when they land. Funny starting hand, but they're not also doing it themselves. That's the benefit, because they know probably that like these skeletons can come back from the graveyard because they are spooky, scary skeletons. If I pay a black and 2 generic, I can actually return them from my graveyard to the battlefield. They are hard to get rid of because they keep on reassembling. Oh, he wants to do something at the end of my turn. Oh yeah, actually, I chose a bad card to get rid of there. I should have. I keep on forgetting what all that does. That's on me. I'm definitely not as sharp as I used to be. That's on me. They have a lot of cards in their hand. As long as they just keep on chipping away. There you go. You don't want me to draw in more cards. They allow so many options. Look at all. Treasure tokens with mana. They're playing a blue, black, red deck. Like kind of symbols on their land. Of course, blue and black being allied colors, or sorry, blue and red being allied colors to black. Oh, they're getting the counters. No. Counters. Oh, it makes little goblin noises too. I almost never play this game with the sound on. You're learning as I learn. Yeah, I definitely picked a poor card to get rid of out of their hand there. I'm definitely not good at multitasking like this. Oh mio mio. All that stuff in there. Oh wow. Right. What you got going on there? You have a lot of cards in your hand for someone who's not doing a lot there. But yeah, I've been playing Magic for one line. At some point I'm going to be with Michelle talking about bees and playing the bee simulator. Even my dice bag has a bee on it for when I'm playing Magic. There you go. What they're going to do? Maybe they're going to take their time. Alrighty. Discard 2 cards. And draw 2 new cards. I'm gonna hope they don't have a counter spell. With a blue mana, 2 blue mana, there's maybe something they could do. Let's see what they do about my skeletal swarm. Nothing. I get a skeleton. Okay. This enchantment can actually get out of hand if left unchecked. Each skeleton I control has trample, which means that if it deals more damage than the opponent creature has toughness, the rest of the damage goes through and hits the other player in the face. And attacks each combat if able, so it makes my skeletons aggressive. It's +X+0, where X is the number of other skeletons you control. So it gets, that X is a variable, kind of like an algebra. So like it's plus however many amounts that is. I was killing my skeletons early. Interesting choice to make, but that also probably means that there's a lot of future destruction. Oh, Jin-Gitaxias, Progress Tile. Oh, that's an interesting spell here. Let's see. Turn. Spell. Interesting. Okay, I think I know what I have to do here. It's kind of a weird move, but I am going to... the first spell I cast each turn is going to get cancelled. I'm going to only use one to target my own creature. Oh wait, no? Oh, I can't target creature Planeswalker with destroy? Yeah. Why won't it let me do that? It doesn't say that I don't control. Alrighty. Can't do that. so I thought I was going to be able to be clever there, but it seems like I need more mana for it. Because that guy's a bit of a jerk. He's a big, powerful Phyrexian Praetor jerk. Jerk Gitaxias, more like, rather than Jin. Anyway, stop my whinging. Oh, I want him. I need a lot of mana, though, to do. I was hoping I could target my own creature. I should be able to, based on the wording of the spell. Artifact, instant, or sorcery spell. Oh, I know. I like it. Creatures. Sure, I want it. Because I know it's going to be countered. Then in response, I'm going to kill his creature. Does he have a counter spell up his sleeve? Is that what that one card is? Because that'll be frustrating, but also valid. What you got, friend? What you got? How are you going to save your Jin Gitaxias? What you got? You can respond. That's why it's pausing the game right now. Whatever you can do in response to me doing this. Drum roll. The drama. The tension. Okay, he's just going to clear the board while he has it. He can't save Jin, but he's going to kill my creatures. You know what? In response, I'm going to be silly about it and do that because I can. More skeletons. More skeletons. Even if temporary skeletons. Whew! There we go. Hilarious. Oof. I hope I was being tricksy there. What you got? Now you draw more cards. Okay. Got a counter spell or a response? Because again, playing with this at like an automatic system, because you know the game pauses, you know there's something they could do. Same time though, you can intentionally put a hold at certain functions, kind of.
I will show you what happens when the spiders squash.
Oh, they talk. It's delightful and weird. I kind of like it. All right, making Lolth the Spider Queen, which is actually a crossover from the Forgotten Realms. Oh, and you're dealing 2 damage to my Planeswalker. All right, that's fine.
Oh, you'll fall into my subservience. Will be a
Hey, you're a big guy. Half the cards in their hand. Well, I only have 2 cards. I guess I'm going to this guy. No, not that one. We'll see. He's a big one. Half the library rounded down. That's a lot of. That's a lot of. But I have a lot of skeletons. My skeletons make my skeletons big. So I think I have him. There we go. That was an interesting game. Well, I thought so. Yeah, the chat's do. Everyone's okay in there. When you get some of these ersatz things. That's the thing. This is kind of like a behaviorist Skinner box, you know, give you a whole bunch of glittery rewards to try to keep you coming back every single day. It's I don't know if it fully qualifies as gacha mechanics, but it feels kind of close to it, and it always makes me a little bit weary. Alright, I think we have time for at least one more, maybe 2 more games. Let's see. Well, skeletons did okay. Let's try giant plant monsters. Everyone likes giant plant monsters. I know I do. Yeah, I don't know. I've been playing Magic for a long time. I could have actually prepared more notes for this, and I might still. If folks would like me to talk more about the history and the mechanics and the kind of politics of Magic the Gathering, there's definitely a lot to be said for games that's been around for an incredibly long time as far as these kind of pop culture materials go. Oh, hey! They just took one look at me apparently and didn't like what they saw. Sometimes that happens. Oh my. One of the things is also like the kind of insecurities around Magic in the tournament scene, right? I remember in the 90s when people were talking with kind of like, a bit chagrined that, poker had so many more consistent world champions than Magic the Gathering did. Because there's so many different permutations of cards, and and when you're playing a tournament, there's so many different formats, and best 2 out of 3 matches that happen. It's relatively rare for people to be like world champions or repeatedly. And that was a point of some concern about the degree to which Magic is a game of skill versus luck. Some people are very invested in that, or whether or not it actually deserved to be on ESPN. I remember back in the early 2000s, actually, you could watch Magic the Gathering games on ESPN2 at 3 in the morning or something. It was absolutely ridiculous, and I didn't really often stay up that late. This is the land that can become a creature. Kind of nifty. Oh, interesting. Oh, you're playing a human deck? Ew, gross. Sorry, when I'm given the option, I don't often play as the humans. Hard to relate, That halfling. Hobbit-sized. Got a pretty good go out at the start here. I don't need to cast that yet. 4, 5. Yeah. I don't want to attack with my halfling. Is small, and their god is a lot more toughness. Notice there, 1 power and 4 toughness. These do molded cards are cards that actually have 2 cards in 1 on the back of them. Oh, are you playing a legendary human? Yeah, I'm going to want to have some creature removal here if I'm going to get through this, alright. Yeah, you're going to hit me in the face. I want my Innkeeper to stay prosperous for the time being. Mostly because he can gain me some life later on. Lose too much life. Hey, there's some removal. That's just what I asked for. Let's see, but I'm going to wait until their turn because it's an instant spell, so I can do it at instant speed. So I can see if they're going to make one of their creatures bigger before I choose to get rid of it. In response to them, say, attacking with me or trying to do something fancy. Sometimes it pays off, but also they have a lot of mana, so they can do things like that. That's a lot of mana, so they're going to have that go. But I'm going to not like that. This destroys non-land permanent, so I can definitely destroy that. Oof. How more land do I need? 1, 2, 5, 6, 6, 7. So next turn I can play my big beefy fancy guy. But for now, I'll play another Spider Queen. Oh wait. Oh, I need to do it that way. Interesting. Oh, no. Alright, never mind. I don't quite have the black mana I need. I should have played that swamp first. Oh no, made a mistake. Well, let's do it and hope for the best. This deck can kind of go off quick as long as I get that guy out with some lands in my hand.
Destroy the gifts nature grows. Rich soil.
Oh, well, that's a shame. I could have used that spell. Alright. No attacks. Next time my Innkeeper is probably going to take one for the team and defend me from a god. It's just, it's in the Innkeeperly code. Oh, defend them for no, yeah. Worth it. Actually, I'm gonna let you take one for the team so that you don't get rid of the Planeswalkers. Are kind of a different kind of permanent where you're actually, you're not really so much summoning the Planeswalker as you're calling in favors in the lore, basically. Alrighty then, let's do this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4, 5, 6. Okay. Put down the land that they saw. Then I am going to play this Cultivator Colossus, who's going to come out and start getting me cards. I can put a land into play, and then draw a card. Put a land into play, draw a card. 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 Okay, and that's when that takes a little bit of a break from that. And then on her way out, Ren will get me a tree folk.
The will of the woods is made manifest.
So what they're gonna do about this? Yeah, she's big. She's pretty big. I don't know if I want to take that. She has vigilance? Yeah, she has vigilance. That's unfortunate. Do I want to take that? Yeah, I'm gonna take that. Alrighty. Let's trample. I don't want to take that. I'm gonna block the next folk. He doesn't have trample. Oh, well that's handy. Alrighty, so next I am going to this way. Meat Hook Massacre, which is kind of a play on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if you're a horror movie buff. 1, 2. Ace. Then he's shenanigans. Oh, shenanigans. Play that. Gives all creatures -4/-4. Gains me life. Life makes this spell cheaper to cast. I play that to get rid of their god. Also gains me a life. Then I mulch just because I can. And then I attack them with my big beefy plant beast, Cultivator Colossus. The turn. Alright, now they're on the defensive. Do they have removal? They do have removal. Look at that. But I have a land that will help me bring my creep back from beyond the grave. Here it comes into play tapped, so it's kind of anticlimactic right now. Planeswalker. Planeswalker gets some spider friends. Spider friends get me life because of the innkeeper. It's all like how things interact, right? Make my land into a 3/3 creature. Attack with my creature. Alright. They're still in a tough spot here. Depending on what they draw, this is what's called top decking. So they're just drawing cards and trying to play them as they get them. Okay. Self another card.
My hatred lives.
So it does. Yoop. Kill 4 cards. Port of Carfell actually lets me get creatures from my graveyard. So in this case, it lets me get back another Cultivator Colossus, so I can start doing that thing all over again, and they have decided they want no part of that. And they give up. So yeah, I don't know, that's Magic the Gathering, at least the online version of it. Hoop. Sort out the screen right here. Got myself some coins. So yeah, let me know, either in person, on the True Soup Gaming Club's Discord channel, on YouTube, on Twitch. If you'd like to see more content where we just kind of play Magic the Gathering, chat more. If you wanted me to actually put more research into a Magic the Gathering talk, I'm more than happy to. Really, any kind of feedback is appreciated. I see that we are getting close to the time, and there's probably no way that I'd finish a game in 5 minutes. I could try to play a red deck it's probably still not that speedy. So in which case, thank you all for coming out to Twitch Tuesdays at the TRU Library. I look forward to seeing you all next week, hopefully, when I have the material together to do a much more elaborate talk on astrology, astronomy, and medicine from ancient Mesopotamia to the 19th century. Thank you again. You have a lovely day now. Cheers.